Well, it's great to be here, and thanks for inviting me here to be a keynote speaker. Barry, you forgot to mention, I should have put it in my resume, that I'm very proud to have a BA of hamburgerology from Hamburger University. And you mentioned that we're a big national company, and we sure are big and national. I think we have 15,000 restaurants in the U.S., but 35,000 globally. So, and really so glad to, since I retired from McDonald's, I'm only into my 6th week. I haven't quite adjusted exactly to what this life is like to be in the media now. But it gave me an opportunity to really prepare, what does sustainability, mean for you and businesses for the future? Because as the governor talked about, this is mainstream. This is the way the world's going. So it gave me a good opportunity to synopsize that. I was very, very, very lucky to work 32 years for McDonald's. I've headed up our sustainability efforts by some name or other for about 27 years. Lucky to work for a company that's grounded by working with owner-operators. Most people don't realize that McDonald's is the world's largest small business. I wish more people knew that. We have 5,000 owner-operators that own our business. Roughly 85% of all of our restaurants around the world are owned by individual restaurant owners. You can't really tell them what to do, including sustainability. So in leading sustainability, it's interesting, we can't just shove it down their throats. We got to make sustainability acceptable to a local owner-operator, whether they're here in Richmond, whether they're in Rio, whether they're in Rome. So, and then the other wonderful thing about working for McDonald's is this idea that we serve 70 million customers a day. And that's an awesome responsibility, not only, providing food that's, safe and sound and affordable and now sustainable, but just the fact that you're devising your sustainability strategies that impact so many people and a big supply chain, et cetera. So if McDonald's thinks that sustainability is mainstream, I think sustainability is really mainstream, right? I mean, you can't get any more mainstream than McDonald's and all the customers that we serve. Now, I suppose I was invited here because, as the governor said, he's seen a protest or two over his time. I sure have, and I've dealt with the good, the bad, and the ugly at McDonald's, and people writing, books and movies and campaigns against us. That's tough to deal with. But also dealt with so many good things and so many great accomplishments and so many recognitions that we received. So wanted to share, kind of some of these learnings. And one of the first things I learned 25 years ago, there I am back in 1990, working with, at the time, was the enemy, the Environmental Defense Fund. And it was the first ever big corporate partnership where, EDF got a lot of pressure about getting in bed with the enemy. McDonald's had pressure on us for caving into the environmental crowd. But I'll tell you this, I learned something then that's been in my thinking ever since. And I really think it's a roadmap for the future for every one of us in the sustainability world, is that when you think long and hard, you work with your experts out there, you work with your suppliers, you have time, you're smart about it, you can, as we did, reduce lots of waste. We reduced 300 million pounds of waste during the decade of the 90s due to this partnership. We did this without spending one extra nickel in our business. And we went from kind of being in the outhouse and a symbol of evil and a symbol of a disposable, wasteful society to arriving at the White House to get an award. So this is a model that works. You can take sustainability and make it truly win-win. So, again, I've reflected and I said, hey, what have I learned in these last 27 years that I can, I know a little bit about cows and a little bit more than that as well. What can I share with you about what this means for the future? So I kind of came up with my 10 tips for the future. So tip number 1 is that sustainability is not about just doing good things. That really is an old-fashioned model. And too many companies still think of it that way. They think of it too much on that right side of that graphic, providing some benefit to society. By the way, that's really important. that companies have a role in society and that we help society thrive and grow. However, that is not the business model of the future. It really is one of shared value. And shared value meaning that you work really hard to find that right intersection of where your business fits in with society, into the core of what you do, and how you could actually make sustainability help your business grow. So this is what I did at McDonald's to really convince our leaders, our executives, our owner-operators, and our suppliers that if I got resistance on developing our sustainability goals, I would always be grounded on the fact, hey, we're not trying to do anything that's not going to be good for our business. And it really helps to make it palatable for, I think, any business. I want to give you an example of how energy is one of our big goals and how this represents shared value. Now, if you were to talk to any environmentalist here, they would say, and if they were to analyze McDonald's business, they would say, your number one impact in McDonald's and your restaurants, and here's all the energy efficient things that we're doing, your number one impact is energy. And the number one issue in the world is climate change. McDonald's, what are you doing to reduce your energy and to reduce the impact of climate change? Well, not only is it the number one environmental issue for McDonald's, but the McDonald's energy bill globally, get this, it's $2 billion. In the United States, the energy bill for McDonald's is close to $1 billion. We set a goal by 2020 that McDonald's is going to reduce that by 20%. You can do the math in your head pretty quickly to see that this is win-win. Tackling a big environmental issue, tackling something that is really good for all of our business operators around the world. And after hearing the plan here in this great Commonwealth, I encourage all those in the audience to help our local owner-operators achieve that goal. There's lots of solutions that are currently available now and into the future to address this. Tip number 2, and this might be counterintuitive to maybe many of you in this room, is the idea that these non-government organizations and nonprofit groups can and should be really your best friend, not your enemy. Not only do you need the expertise of these environmental groups, because they do bring expertise to the table, but look at that trust slide. Yeah, you can do further research by going to GlobeScan and look at all their trust slides. The fact is, who do people believe in? They do not believe necessarily Bob Langert from McDonald's when I'm speaking. But they're going to listen to the Environmental Defense Fund. They're going to listen to the World Wildlife Fund and what they say about McDonald's. Look at the trust scores for NGOs and for scientists, and look at that far right negative score for global multinational companies. So companies like McDonald's, that's the landscape that we're in. People are just not set up to trust us at all. So again, NGOs shouldn't be the enemy. They should be your best friend. Probably, I want to tell you a little bit of a fish story. This fish story started back in 1999 when, because we were having a hard time actually tracking down enough fish to sell at McDonald's, we decided that we needed to develop a sustainability program for fish. And always remember this. If you remember 1999, it was in the midst of this anti-globalization campaign. And this meeting we had was in Seattle, and the World Trade Organization was just there, and they had just broken the windows and vandalized all types of McDonald's restaurants and Starbucks. And we were a symbol back then of this anti-globalization movement. And we said to our fish suppliers, remember, sustainability, that word, nobody even knew what it meant in 1999. And so we said, hey, we want to develop a sustainable fish program. We want to invite Conservation International to our fish forum, and it's a meeting where we devise the strategies for a fish business in Seattle. Can you, let's partner with them to develop a way to do this. And these fish suppliers said, no way, no how. We're not going to show up if that radical Conservation International group comes to the meeting. Well, if you know Conservation International, they're a wonderful group. They're based on science. They're not overly corporate friendly, but they're out to solve the problems of the world, and they're business sensitive. So we at McDonald's stuck to our guns. And we said, well, you know what, let's just give it a try. Companies got to do that. And lo and behold, once the adversarial thinking dissipated really quickly, and before you know it, our fish suppliers and Conservation International became best friends. They developed these standards for sustainable fish. And as we speak today, all the fish in McDonald's across the world is certified as sustainable. We are probably, I don't think most people know this, I sure wish more people knew that we probably sell the most sustainable food products in all of America. Because all of our fish is certified, Marine Stewardship Council certified now. And by the way, all of our coffee, the espresso-based coffee, is certified sustainable from the Rainforest Alliance. So imagine a company like McDonald's, mainstream, serving 70 million people. We're already doing that, and there's more to come. That really represents where sustainability is going. And again, how we need to work with credible third parties to make a difference. We handed over complete open doors to the World Wildlife Fund to take a look at our supply chain and said, hey, you can talk to anybody, see any of our data, and you tell us what the most important priorities are for our supply chain. And I suppose all your supply chains are different, but most of them, it's big. Within McDonald's, I always say about 80% of our impact on the world is through our supply chain. And look at those products that we picked out. These are the top 6 products that through WWF, we're going after them. And I would just advise that, again, thinking of them as friends and not foes, to think about the criteria to pick a partner. And to me, the important criteria is that they are science-based, they have some sense of practicality to them, and there's plenty out there that are savvy business-wise. They're sensitive to the needs of business. You can find that. Yes, there's the radical groups out there. Let them be radical. Work with the ones, and most of them are well-intended and well-versed and experts and wonderful to work with. So tip number 3, this is one that it took us a long time, even for me, to get used to, is the fact that so many of us probably bemoan social media. Heck, McDonald's is a very visible company. Every time I read all the comments on social media, it can you get all these attacks and bad things said about you as a person, even the company. So it is tough. But the fact is, it's a reality, and companies need to welcome transparency, to see it as an opportunity. On the other hand, you need to develop thick skin. There is no doubt about that. We at McDonald's just developed this huge transparency program called Our Food, Your Questions. I think it's a fascinating program. Check into it and go to the website and look up how French fries are made, where your potatoes come from, eggs, what's in a chicken McNugget, and it's total transparency. And but along with that, if you follow all the comments and if you follow everything, you'll see lots of good things said about this program. You'll also see a lot of negative things said about it. And I think too many companies focus in on that negative part. And I think, I was always an advocate at McDonald's that let's not have 100% media coverage positive be our barometer, because it's impossible to have 100%. Let's think of 70, 80% positive, and let's deal with the 20 or 30%. But I don't know, a lot of executives have a hard time with that. But it really should be, we should be accepting and have that thick skin. I remember I was finally convinced to do this Twitter chat. And I wasn't all that big of a fan of that a few years ago. And I said, okay, I'll spend my lunch hour. So they set up this Twitter chat on CSR Wire, and there's a whole Twitter chat. I spent an hour answering, and I thought it was, to be honest with you, a little bit thin, because I was giving these big, tough questions. I was giving these kind of 1 or 2 sentence answers to, which I'm not used to. They told me later on, during my 1 hour lunch, that I reached 2 million people. I go, hey, that's pretty cool for my lunch hour, so hey, you got to get involved with it. And by the way, I do remember doing the Twitter chat, and they had the screen on there, and I was looking at all these comments, and I go, most of them were positive, but there were a lot of negative comments too. So it's like, you just have to take the good with the bad. Okay, tip number 4. Don't let others define your sustainability strategy. Now that sounds pretty basic, but it still amazes me that so many companies still are on their heels. They kind of let all the negative people or protesters or critics kind of drive the agenda. Even at McDonald's, I would say for many years, I'm very proud of the work that I led and I was involved with, but admittedly, too often we were reacting to the world, and I always thought we were very, very good at reacting and doing good things and so on. But when we decided 3 years ago to put our journey together for good, which is our roadmap and our strategy at McDonald's now, I just think it was just like a huge leap to all of a sudden be in our front foot. And our CEO, when he asked for this about 3 or 4 years ago, he said, hey, I don't want to play defense anymore. I want us as senior leaders in this company to agree upon what we stand for, what the purpose of our organization is. I want all of our leaders around the world to focus in on what's most important. And I want to start gaining the edge over our critics. And I really think that this idea of going from this from and to is really important. I think a lot of companies are still stuck on this idea that it's kind of a potpourri of activities, things are disjointed, your message is not breaking through, people don't know what you stand for. And the fact is, if you develop a strategy, now you are putting yourself in control of what sustainability means for your business, you're aligned, you're focused on the few things that matter, and you can get more credit for doing that. Hey, that's just win-win, and I think more companies should do that. Well, like we did, so this is our roadmap. I don't think you can read all the details, but the fact is, I will tell you that depending on your company and organization, it's not easy to do what I just said, especially in a company like McDonald's that I always say we're double decentralized. Everybody kind of runs their own business around the world. Owner-operators are very, very independent, don't want to be told what to do. And here we are coming from the corporate level saying, well, here's what we're going to stand for. And I remember, so it took 3 years to develop this roadmap that I'm showing to you. So what I'm saying is, it's hard, but it's worth it, depending on the complexity of your organization. And embedded in this framework is this idea that headline maybe you can read, that we're going to grow our business by making a positive difference in society. So to me, that goes back to that shared value. That was the essence of our strategy. That is our strategy for the future. I believe it should be a strategy for every business, that you look for sustainability not as a risk management tool, but rather as a tool to actually grow your business. Grow it for your people, your employees, your customers, for efficiency, for your brand. There's just so many reasons that if you take control over it, you are now defining your own future and not living by others defining it for you. We have 5 pillars. We define sustainability very broadly. For McDonald's, it's about food, sourcing, community, people, and planet. So it's very holistic. We have aspirations that we're trying to achieve, and we have 8 goals. So let me tell you about a couple of them, which ties into my next big tip, which is set stretch goals for your business, like you would do with other things in your business, because sustainability can really help you innovate and come up with new ways of doing things. So we made this really big, bold announcement last year that was very different from what McDonald's is used to doing. Being a pretty conservative Midwestern company, we said we're going to start buying sustainable beef by the year 2016. And by the way, when we made that announcement a year ago, there wasn't even a definition for what sustainable beef was. And so that was part of the whole idea of the announcement. And by the way, why are we setting this goal for buying sustainable beef? We're not doing it because we're being protested on beef. Not at all. There's no pressure points from activists on sustainable beef. We're doing this because we want to sell more beef. We're known as a beef company. We have 5 burger brands that sell $1 billion a year. Beef has its issues. Beef needs to be more relevant. So I'm out there talking to a lot of cattle ranchers and beef producers to convince them that this is not something from McDonald's dictating on high and prescribing it. This is collaborative. We want to help grow your business, our business, make beef more relevant. So we're still on this journey. Look to see where we are next year. We will, because we're committed to it. We're going to be buying sustainable beef somewhere in the world starting next year and setting a goal for the future. You know, we're also made some interesting commitments to health and well-being. You see the apple slices there in the Happy Meal. I think we sell the most fruits and vegetables of any company in the United States as well. I can't prove it, so I'm not sure the lawyers would approve that comment that I just made. But the fact is, I want to see something proved differently than us, you know, selling more and more fruits and vegetables. And we have a goal by 2020 to double the amount of fruits and vegetables that we sell to our customers, that we sell, not just offer, but sell. And again, okay, why are we doing this? We're not just doing this to be good and nice and altruistic. We're doing this because the average customer comes to McDonald's about 2.5 times a month. That's not a bad set of frequency there, but the fact is we want those customers to come more often, and we want them to come from customers that don't come to us right now. We think by offering these different options, we can go from 2.5 visits a month to perhaps 3 or 4. Why not? So, you know, setting goals is probably the one toughest thing that I had to help coordinate within our company. Because we had set a goal to get out of trans fatty acids back in the early 2000s, and we missed the goal by 3 years. But we got it accomplished, so there's no trans fatty acids in our cooking oil anymore. But we were 3 years late. We got sued. We had to litigate through the legal process. We ended up spending tens of millions of dollars in a settlement. And it really soured our company and our leadership towards setting goals. Because, you know, here we are setting a good goal that's good for the people, good for the business. We ended up achieving it a little bit late, and yet we got sued. We had to pay out money. That is frustrating. So I had all that going against me. So I go, okay, how can I get our company to kind of rally around, you know, setting goals? Because we're a very visible company. So first I showed a slide like this. And I said, if you look at some of the Fortune 500 companies, and you look at, you know, the ones that are setting, almost all of them are setting goals. I had a person on our staff, you know, put down the average big company is setting like 10 sustainability goals across social and environmental factors. The Global Green Brand has a study of the top 50 global brands. All of them have goals. So I was telling our company, I said, well, we don't have any goals. Like we're an outlier. And that was pretty effective, but it didn't get me to the finish line. Then I showed this chart. I mean, some of the stuff you're not going to read here. We did a lot of benchmarking. I'm only going to show you a few big brands. You know, I kind of listed through, okay, here's what Coca-Cola does. And by the way, see this goal that they have? I mean, this is a pretty bold, audacious goal that Coca-Cola has to replenish all of their water. Can you imagine how much water, you know, they use, and they have this type of goal? And it's the core of their business, right? The core of their business is they use water. I go, that's a really, really good strategic move on Coke's part, isn't it? I think Walmart, as you probably know, when Walmart entered the sustainability arena around 2006, it's been awesome to have another big brand out there, you know, basically asking a lot of their suppliers to do more on sustainability, and they have all these goals. And they're very diverse, you know, from sustainability, environment, and labor, and diversity to here, you know, things on nutrition. And it's really very, very, very helpful. And again, you know, when you think of this idea that sustainability is mainstream, companies like McDonald's, Walmart, making sustainability part of their business proposition, I think that's amazing. Unilever, if I had to say, if you want to benchmark with one company alone that has probably the best universally thought of sustainability program, look at Unilever. They have a program called Sustainability Living Plan. They've got like 110 goals. I'm not sure how they can manage 110 goals. It's awesome what they're doing, and it's also awesome how they're, again, focusing in on like soap and ways to set goals that tie to their core business. So it was this slide in particular that I thought was the most effective in my work internally within McDonald's. I said, Because when our CEO gave us the mandate to develop a framework, he said, we want to be a leader. And everything he asked our team that developed the plan was be a leader. And then as we came forth with the different drafts of our plan, and they saw some of the boldness that we were asking for, we heard, let's be more careful. We don't want to assume all that risk. That one left side axis is risk averseness, so 100% being risk-free. So there's this whole idea of, if you want, what I basically told our management team was, if we want no risk or very little risk, we're going to be a small-time player. We're not going to be a leader in sustainability. So what is it that the management team wants? And it really jolted them to thinking, well, yeah, we want to be a leader. And we actually went through an exercise of plotting all of our goals. And it's proprietary and confidential, because not every goal do we want to be to the far right, be a leader. So we plotted in how much risk we wanted to take, how much leadership we wanted to take. And I think it's a good exercise that I just thought I'd pass on to all of you. The sixth tip that I want to talk about is to invite in the lawyers, invite in your IT staff, invite the finance team to join the sustainability effort. Why? Because this is mainstream. This is not a nice to do, it's not a niche, you're not just doing this, I hope, for PR reasons. But the fact is, companies are driving sustainability to be robust. Hey, the non-financial world is not as sophisticated yet as the financial world, but you should treat it like it is financial. The data and measures that you need and the responsibility to be accurate, correct, and do things properly is a big responsibility where you need those lawyers, you need the data people, you need corporate finance behind everything that you're doing. Because the idea, remember, is to integrate sustainability, not make it peripheral. So the more people that are part of the team, and that's what I saw happen in my work as we developed this framework. I saw that, man, it's great that we're having all the finance people caring about this. I had more lawyers deal with my stuff than I ever, be careful what you ask for. That's kind of what happened. But I figured that's good, because having the lawyers involved tells you that this sustainability stuff is serious business. I used to do sustainability, and the lawyers never cared about anything. So I'd rather have them care, even though it can be tough sometimes. I think this is a really critical tip. You need to really tighten the weakest link in your supply chain. You know, supply chains, as I already mentioned, are so important to probably most of the companies here. It was for McDonald's. I remember this moment back here, the story, it was, 9 years ago? It was 9 years ago, almost to the day, because it was April 16th, tax day, when I learned that Greenpeace set up this campaign against McDonald's. And they showed up in the UK in these chicken suits that you see there. And they wrote a report about eating up the Amazon, that due to excessive soya farming in Brazil, that was causing too much deforestation of the Amazon. And they did a campaign against McDonald's in Europe. And I scratched my head. I go, what the heck is all of this? I didn't know about it. We didn't know about it at McDonald's. We had no clue that this was even an issue. And all of a sudden, you know, all these news stories are going around about something we knew nothing about. It was not on our radar screen. And that's when it really woke up our company to say, you know, our supply chain is not just the immediate people that we buy from. It is all the supply chain, 3, 4, 5 steps removed, when an issue like this, which, by the way, I learned was a legitimate issue. I guess the other factor involved with working with these issues is that when even Greenpeace, which is more of a campaigner, not a solution-based organization, but what if the report they wrote was basically accurate? Which I learned. You know, part of my job was to work with people that actually know their stuff, and I would call Conservation International, I called World Wildlife Fund that very day. I said, is this Greenpeace report accurate? And they said, well, it is. They might exaggerate a little bit here and there, but it's actually, it is happening. So we as a company decided that very day, and I called up Greenpeace that very day, and I said, you know what, we agree with you. I later learned, because I took a trip through the Amazon with Greenpeace a few months later, I later learned that I shocked them. Because, you know, they had this big campaign, and I said, well, we agree with you. But then I said, very importantly, I said, we don't agree at all with your 15 demands that you have here that you're asking us to do. Because, by the way, McDonald's is not going to solve the soya issue in Brazil by ourselves. I told them we're 1/10 of 1% of buying soya through our suppliers. So you're being silly. You've got to be brave to say that to an NGO. I said it to them. But I said, if you leverage us, I bet you we can get other retailers. I bet you we can get our suppliers like Cargill on board. I bet you we can work with our partners in Brazil to make something happen, because this is a legitimate issue. And Greenpeace instead turned around. They became solution-based, and we did this. A moratorium was announced. And there hasn't been hardly any. There's GPS tracking of soya farming now in Brazil. It's working. There isn't further deforestation in the Amazon due to soya. So it's win-win. You know, the same thing happened in animal welfare. You know, as you probably know, that's a very visible issue, and we were getting campaign from PETA and other folks. And I mean, I don't want to put this slide up there too long because that whole image is pretty, ugly. So as a matter of fact, I'll get rid of it right now. But can you imagine your business getting attacked like that? And you saw the picture of us working with Dr. Temple Grandin. Dr. Temple Grandin, I just think she's phenomenal. Not sure how many of you know of the work. A very famous animal welfare scientist, famous in the autism world. Who's seen the movie Temple Grandin? So everybody that's not seen it, it's just a wonderful movie, highly recommended. So, that was part of my job is who's the best at what they do. So my boss said, go create an animal welfare program back in 1997. I said, well, she knows the most about it. So we basically took her ideas, gave it to our suppliers, had them figure out what to do. They came up with an audit program that is so successful, that's been adopted by all the meat suppliers within McDonald's business globally, all of our competitors. Everybody's kind of doing the same thing now, which is a phenomenal occurrence. We took something that was very emotional, worked with an expert to make it scientifically based and rational. And really the solutions, for the most part, are not costly. It's just more smart people, smart investments. Okay, I'm getting to tip number 8. I think this tip here is probably one that I lose the most sleep over. The idea that science should trump popular opinion. We're a very consumer-based company, and everything, as you know, gets simplified in the public domain. What do we do about issues that are so complex? It takes a long time to explain them. So a couple examples, we have to make a decision on eggs at McDonald's pretty soon. We're doing a big test that we're buying eggs from conventional cages that are pretty intensive. Cage-free is an option. A lot of people think cage-free is the most wonderful thing. Then we have these enriched colony cages, which are like deluxe kind of condo size that have perches and scratch pads, et cetera. So the science is all coming through. I've looked at it all, and people are still looking at it. It's pretty, at least from my eyes, and I'm not a scientist, but I like to read all this stuff. It's very complicated which one is the most sustainable. Because remember, the buck stops at a company like McDonald's, where sustainable is animal welfare, it's environmental leadership, it's economics, it's cleanliness and sanitation and health. And you put all that, I don't know. By the way, I would put all my eggs on the enriched housing. That's what the colony cages. That's what I think is best for sustainability. But I also think that consumers think cage-free is best. The same thing is happening with potatoes. Maybe you've read about the GMO potato that a big supplier, Simplot, has developed. Just got approved a couple months ago. This potato, I just have no doubt about it, it is better for the world. It is safer, it reduces waste, and actually the genetic modification comes from a DNA from another potato into a different potato. So it's not like a butterfly to a fish or something like that. Yet all the research shows that consumers, based on all these kind of radical groups making GMO sound so negative, consumers are not ready for GMO potatoes. So, so I don't have an answer for you, by the way. I wish I had a tip as to how to deal with it, except to say that spend a lot of time working on making sure that science trumps all. I think this is my most important tip, because I'm coming to the end of my tips. And One of the things I found, even in my current time just leaving McDonald's, probably the number one complaint I had from internal people at McDonald's is, what does it mean? Sustainability is such a fuzzy term. There is no doubt about it. But hey, forget about the fuzziness of it. It's the concept of people want to do business and consumers want to do business with companies that care, that have a purpose. And it's the real part of the future. Here's a picture of Walmart. They just announced the environmental leadership program that they just put on their website, recognizing companies that are the leaders in their field. So there's going to be winners and losers in this from companies kind of measuring it. I already talked about the Unilever plant. What I like about what Unilever has done, and Paul Pullman is probably a CEO that's far ahead of many other CEOs. Unilever's got 330 brands. He's asked each one of those brands to have a purpose behind them. I think that's interesting. Chipotle, a competitor, formerly part of McDonald's, got kudos this past a couple months ago. Do you remember reading the stories about them running out of sustainable pork in their restaurants and they couldn't serve enough of this to their customers? They actually got kudos for this by not having enough product. Isn't that amazing? And obviously they're leveraging that real well. You know, McDonald's made this announcement on antibiotics, very recently. I took this quote from the very head of supply chain. I highlighted this idea that it's listening to the customers. And by the way, that's not rhetoric. Our research in McDonald's said this is what customers want. They don't want sustainability, but they care about where their food and where their products come from and all the values that are behind it. I saw that our new CEO was just quoted related to some of the changes we made on antibiotics and the minimum wage. He said we want to be a modern, progressive burger company. I don't know. How are you going to be modern and progressive unless you deal with these issues of sustainability? I mentioned Paul Pullman, and you can kind of read what he believes in, and he's got a lot to say. But again, he talks about profit is more than just what you need. You need to have a purpose. A lot of leaders are seeing the future, including PepsiCo's leader, who really sees the set of stakeholders way beyond shareholders. It's funny. I was just at a college campus speaking to a whole bunch of MBAs and talking about sustainability, and they did an exercise about who is this company's stakeholders, and they could only come up with one or two stakeholders, mostly being shareholders. I go, man, they're missing the boat. Your stakeholders are very wide and broad that you need to satisfy. And probably most of all is this whole area of aspirationals. Aspirationals is a piece of research that I think more people should get familiar with. You can look up GlobeScan where this comes from. But the fact is, by the way, they're not millennials, and somebody's going to speak about millennials later on, which is really a big part of what's going on. They're a big subset of millennials, but aspirationals are 1/3 of the global people around the world. It's 2.5 billion people that define themselves as aspirationals, defined as they love to shop, they desire responsible shopping, and they're going to do business with companies that have the best interests of society in mind. So again, to think that this is just a fad, your organization will end up being a loser. I think we need to be on the winning side. I just want to close off with these 5 Ps that kind of were the way I started to think, because in leading sustainability, I tell you what, it can be schizophrenic. Many days where you want to pull your hair out and how does this work and how do you make things continue to happen. And I would always kind of ground myself with the idea, of course, having this passion is really important. Certainly, I'm very passionate about this whole idea of sustainability, but passion is not a good convincing trait in business. It can't just be passion. And you got to show a lot of persistence. I talked about 3 years to get stuff done. All these major programs take multiple years. You can't just go in there and demand it. So it's got to be persistence every day. On the other hand, you also have to just be patient, which I always find that's my biggest problem is being patient. But you just have to let time take its place because other people have to learn. I think to be focused on the purpose of your organization and to tie the work you do to the purpose is very important because that's the biggest motivator. And then to be really especially in a business context, always talking about performance that matters for the business leaders, measures and metrics. So I think, the idea, what next and what now, my thought is, I still remember that first Earth Day back in 1970. So here we are 35 years later. I think what's next is looking at this upcoming Earth Day next week less as a matter of fixing problems. It's more a matter of this is the future, and it's one of opportunity. So, how are you going to grow your business by being more sustainable? Thank you.